All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we are joined by Surbhi Rathore. Surbhi is the co-founder and CEO of Symbl. Symbl is democratizing conversational tech to make collaboration effortless at scale. The company is venture-backed. It's one of Techstars' 2019 cohorts. It's also backed by Amazon, and they've created a new category of conversational tech infrastructure, and that's voice and text analytics applied for human conversations like sales, meetings, support, and education. So thanks for joining us today, Surbhi.
Very nice to be here.
So, I'd like to kick things off by better understanding kind of your background. How did you get into, tech, software development, and then eventually building your own AI-based company?
Yeah, sure. So I am an electronics engineer by background, born and raised in India. My dad was in the armed forces. He retired a couple of years back. So growing up, I've always interfaced with technology because he himself was a communications engineer in the army. And so I did my electronics engineering back in India. After that, joined a startup. It was a network security startup that moved into software right there. And then have been working in software post that from network security to telecommunication domain in a company called Amdocs. Amdocs is where I have spent most of my period working on CRM systems, contact center applications, self-service applications, and then gradually moved to conversational AI as a product. And that was my transition.
Got it. Okay. And so when you thought about building out Symbl, where did the idea come from? What pain point did you see? And at what point did you decide, I'm going to actually hop out and start something on my own as a founder?
Honestly, I don't know if there's always one light bulb moment. I always hear this question from people and I go on wondering that I don't even remember if there was one moment like that, because there's a series of moments that actually lead to an idea getting, actually maturing into, yes, let's do it. Mm-hmm. And it started with my background in looking at conversational AI, the interactions between human and machine, using chatbots and virtual assistants that we were doing at Amdocs, how to bring that to scale, how to implement the technology in CRM systems, which is kind of what we were doing. And then looking at what are the other places at which conversations occur at scale. Mm-hmm. And what are the things that we can do to optimize efficiencies in that conversations, whether it is adding new workflows or automation or AI, because that's what we were into. And so it was really the background, which we looked at, different types of ways in which we can optimize conversations, but then also the missing gaps in the industry and saying that, is there an existing voice tech infrastructure that can analyze human to human conversation data naturally, where you don't really have to call out a chatbot or, say, hey, Alexa, hey, Siri, take a note. You don't want to do that in natural conversation. So it was that. And then it was also the market dynamics, because when we started the company, there were other product companies like Gong, Chorus, Unifor. They were all kind of emerging in the space and gaining mindshare. So I think it was really a combination of several light bulb moments, I would say, not one, that actually led to that. Okay, I think about this thing, and my co-founder has a background in actually building and working on speech systems because of his own personal health problems that he had a couple of years back. And then looking at conversations in Amdocs, and then looking outside in the market and looking at the gaps in the industry. So it was really combined effect.
Yeah, there are a number of different forces that came together that kind of gave you that light bulb moment. I'm curious where you met your co-founder.
Yeah, he was in the same organization, Amdocs. So he was kind of on the development side of the stuff in San Jose, and I was working into pre-sales implementation capacity from the company to, it was like a small startup within the big company. So we were having a small team, finding customers, doing POCs. It was amazing. But that also led me to believe that, if this is amazing, how amazing it would be to have a startup, actual startup of my own. Yeah. So, and it was a lot of forcing from my co-founder, had great technology background. So it was I'll trust you to build this and help you sell it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, awesome. And Obviously, you're in the 2019 Techstars cohort,
Yeah.
and then also received some investment from Amazon. So curious, kind of, as you guys created this idea, at what point did you become involved or apply to Techstars, and then at what point did Amazon come along?
Yeah, actually, we applied to Techstars. I know our first application got rejected. That was in 2018. And it was like we had not even started the company. It was like we had just thought about the idea. And we said, okay, let's try to validate it by applying to an accelerator program and see what they come back with. And then they followed us upon for our next application. And then by that time, we had much more clarity in terms of what we were building. Yeah. And so we got into Techstars Seattle and started in, I think, Feb 2019. We got an acceptance in October 2019. And I mean, we could see the ways that we would totally change the face of the company because of Techstars. It's just the network as first-time founders that you get access to, the kind of mentorship that you get from the right people. And it's really their responsibility to get you hooked up with those right people. So you don't have to waste time scraping LinkedIn and asking people for coffee meetings. Like the meetings is already there for you.
Okay.
So I think
but they're the right meetings, because when you're scraping LinkedIn and finding random meetings, you can end up with any and everybody, right?
Totally, man. I can't tell you how many meetups I attended in the Bay Area when I actually started the company. Like first 3 months, I was only meeting people. And there was a time when I started meeting the same people over and over again. Like I hit that saturation point. But Techstars was amazing. I mean, like, I'm glad we got into it. I'm glad we got to work with Chris and Avial, who have actually worked historically with several startups and, bringing them from 0 to 1. And we were a little further along when we got into Techstars. Like we already had a couple of pilot customers.
Okay.
And I always think that maybe we should have entered earlier rather than later, but it all turned out great. And then this year, we were a part of the Alexa Next Stage program, which was actually a combined program run by Alexa Fund and Techstars together, with the motivation of scaling voice technologies with the help of Amazon's leadership. So it was a really good synergy that we could identify. We also announced Symbl's conversational AI adapter for Amazon MSDK. The end of the program, going towards the demo day, and yeah, it has been great so far.
So, so with Amazon, obviously you developed some sort of technology partnership down the road. Was it initially more of a, let's just, what's the word that I want to use? More of an advice. Did they come in more of an advisory capacity, funding, and then later on become a technology partner?
No, I mean, like we started working with Amazon only this year as part of the program, and the association with Fund was really that we want to invest and help you guys grow, because this program was very centered towards growth stage. So it was really like, you guys are already generating revenues, how to make sure that we, exponentially multifold it using our resources. So their sales, their go-to-market, their product integrations, everything that leads to scalable output from a growth standpoint for the company. So that's kind of where they came in.
Okay. Very exciting. So then I want to talk more about Symbl itself now.
Yeah.
So as you came up with this idea, I now want to understand the pain point that you're solving in the market.
Yeah, it's very fascinating because we realize that sometimes when we talk to customers, they don't know that it's a pain point yet. Because we're trying to do things a little early on in the market and we're pretty aware of it. But then also trying to do some of the fundamental things to scale voice intelligence. So some of the key problems and challenges that developers and businesses have today to analyze voice conversations right here, which is kind of like a dumb audio pipe flowing through our network where we have no control of the data, is to be able to figure out how to analyze. So either they want to deploy like data scientists, and you would know a lot more on that just because of the space that you guys are also working in. But do I have my own data science team? Do I outsource it? What kind of models will I need to build? I'll have to continuously maintain it. If I use NLP APIs over speech to text, that happens over conversation data, how do I make sure that I'm using the right rules? How many false positives will occur in rules because there is no context? Should I even do it today, or it's just a waste of time right now? Because I mean, like, I don't even know the ROI which my business is going to get. So there are just like too many questions unanswered. And I think the primary reason for it is because we scaled rapidly from a voice intelligence perspective, rapidly scaled on chatbots, virtual assistants, all of that front on the NLU side. Like I
Okay.
would say scaled with double quotes because it means differently for different people. But
Yeah.
then on the human to human interaction side, we haven't been able to do anything beyond transcription. And what people get from transcription is just like a blob of text.
Right.
And then they have to figure out either I spend my resources to build something of value, or why should I use this expensive transcription vendor?
Mm-hmm.
So there are like lots of questions which are unanswered in a lot of businesses, and they usually hesitate to even jump on this journey to analyze conversation data, which is so valuable for their business.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the problem, I would say, in itself, and multiple problems in itself. And one of the reasons also is the cost of this entire system. The ratio to the cost that it will take them to build versus to partner versus to actually give value to the customers, there's lots of question marks around it. And cost is high. I mean, like, honestly, transcription isn't expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Even though automated transcription gives 1/60th of human transcription pricing, it's still expensive to scale to 3 million hours annually.
Right.
So I think those are like some of the challenges and problems overall at an industry standpoint to scale voice intelligence for natural human interactions and amplify experiences when me and you are talking, like
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, yeah. And so would I be correct in saying that essentially the service that you're providing is the ability to analyze and understand conversations that are happening, whether they're, live in person or over a phone call, over a Zoom meeting. But you guys are allowing the teams, whether that be, development teams or whoever it may be, to understand that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So Symbl is basically a comprehensive suite of APIs that integrates over voice, text, video interfaces in both real-time as well as asynchronous channels. So we have integrations with WebSocket, telephony. We can ingest transcription data, chat, email conversations, like any sort of human-to-human interaction data, to automatically generate a structured information content from the conversation that helps you go beyond speech to text out of the box. So you don't have to give upfront training, which is also another pain point. Like when companies start embarking on this journey, the first thing that they have to do is gather data, label it, annotate
Right.
it, and build machine learning models, and maybe multiple of them, and then constantly keep maintaining and updating them, right? So we're giving them this everything out of the box in a plug and play fashion, and not just JSON outputs, also thinking about from a functional standpoint and giving them elements, UI elements, where they can embed in their own products and quickly test with their beta customers. I think the key is like getting them to test faster. By
Mm-hmm.
then they will go to production faster, because
Yeah.
voice intelligence has like a user experience is a very critical part of voice intelligence, which like a lot of businesses are not being able to spend a lot of time on, just because of the time it takes for them to build the technology. So we want to like free people of building the tech, let them customize the tech to their use case, and
Mm-hmm.
quickly build the experiences that they want to.
Right. So what might be an example,
Yeah.
just so we can bring this home? Yeah, an example of someone using Symbl.
Sure. So some of the key use cases that we do is we work with developers and product managers that want to add like a meeting assistant to a platform like the one we are talking right now. And so that there can be a meeting assistant that will sit on the call in real time, and the moment the call is over, send you post-meeting summary notes with action items, next steps, topics, all of that, calendar invites. Then automatically analyzing sales conversations and adding into CRM, which is a very big problem for sales agents.
Right.
Automatically analyzing customer support conversations in real time and augmenting an agent's capability to get knowledge base articles related to real time topics, call composition and summary in their CRM platforms. Lead gen is a very exciting use case because so many companies are doing multiple bulk calls every minute and figuring out which calls land to voicemail, which calls actually had a person interested in buying, and things like that. So yeah, these are all the use cases in sales support meetings. But then Like telehealth is a great use case, distance learning, automatically creating lecture notes, indexing video calls and recordings by AI contextual filters so that you can split the audio content into multiple pieces for content distribution and moderation. And use cases are unlimited in the
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm curious how, what would be the difference, right? Because in my mind, if you're, I don't even want to say aggregating lecture notes from, a professor, that's an entirely different output than what you see if you're in telehealth or if you're trying to build some type of conversational system as a developer to pull notes from a Zoom call. So I'm curious how, with the number of different outputs that you have, are you all programming the system so that you can deliver those outputs, or is that something that happens on the client side?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when we talk to customers at a very foundational level, they all are looking for the same thing. They're
Okay.
looking for a conversation timeline. They're looking to understand how was the conversation split by topics of discussion, not by keywords, but really contextual topics. They're looking to identify what were the questions asked and the answers given, what were the action items and next steps, any kind of ideas that was generated. So at a fundamental level, if you look at horizontally across use cases, these are really the building blocks.
Got it.
And then providing these building blocks, they can add their own rules, business functionality. Some customers have actually built their own bag of words machine learning models on top of the output that we generate to further categorize topics into certain categories and give output. So with this baseline and foundation, you can actually build the outcomes of all the use cases that I mentioned in several different ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. And so then as you think about the customer more, who are the primary types of companies, customers that are adopting? I mean, are we talking large organizations? Are we talking startups? Are we talking, do you need to talk to the CEO first who may not understand the tech, or do you go to the CTO who kind of understands it, right?
I mean, like our buyers are usually the technical decision makers. So we speak to mainly product folks and the technology folks. And sometimes the developers are already looking for solutions like this. Sometimes it's more of a use case qualification that happens at a product level. But the companies are all across the spectrum. Like there are all the way from startups, which are just beginning to revolutionize and change how communications are happening and building very unique collaboration experiences, to all the way big fintech enterprise businesses, which have their own like labs and team, which is building new products and adding voice intelligence and text intelligence into use cases. So it's pretty spread across the horizon.
Okay, got it. And I guess when you go in to have this conversation with the company, great that it's someone who kind of understands the tech, the product. I'm curious though, what's the conversation around value add? Are you citing certain metrics where they see kind of a boost in bottom line, saving time, saving cost, or is the conversation more of, look, we can help you to achieve a competitive advantage? I'm curious how they find value, or how you speak towards tangible value with what you've built with Symbl.
Yeah, we actually measure values at two different locations. Like one place is our direct customer value, which is the customer that we are selling our technology to, which is the product people or the tech people in a company. And they're always comparing like the time for them to build this versus the time it takes to integrate this. So the direct first value is always that how much time are we able to save in go to market, and how effective this is for us to partner instead of building this on our own. So that's kind of like the first value benchmark for them. Obviously, in addition to benchmarks of the accuracy, F1 scores, precision recall, like several different internal system metrics, which go hand in hand with this metrics. And then the next step of the value is really to the end user or the business, depending upon the use case that they are building. So if they are building a call center use case, they're looking forward to actually enhance customer experience, improve CSAT, and reduce average call handling time. If they're building a sales to CRM, they want to actually say the time saved of a CRM agent or like a sales agent, and hence the impact on the revenue and the growth or the number of meetings booked, depending upon their KPIs. So first value is to the technical team building the product. And then the second value is really to the end user, depending upon how the outputs, how the user experience is configured.
Got it. So it could be multiple, there's multiple levers that you can pull here in order to add value, which is great. It gives you guys a lot of flexibility. One of the things I'm curious about, especially with the work that we do at Tesoro AI, is just helping folks who are based in AI or would like to be based in AI scale. And so one of the major challenges that we hear about a lot is the access to talent, the ability to acquire talent quickly enough. And look, we're a startup, right? So we have to do this at a price that we can afford, right? Or a cost that we can afford. It looks like you all are kind of leveraging more of a global type team. Would love to learn, as you thought about being at the forefront, the cutting edge of technology, how you thought about from the initial phases. All right, here's how we're going to build the team from day one, which is going to allow us to reach those next milestones that we'd like to hit.
Yeah, sure. It's a good topic for debate for several people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've heard people saying that, no, like our entire team should be based in the US because everyone's sitting together and building together. I have a different viewpoint on it from two perspectives. One is obviously operational efficiency of the capital itself. As a startup, you're already struggling to survive and have a runway, which is not unlimited. And so being able to hire double the amount of people or triple the amount of people that you would in the US only, and augmenting that with geographical regions like India, where kind of like my roots are. So it's super helpful because I have worked in Pune, India for a long time. And so it was very helpful to go back there and say, okay, I exactly know which companies are here. I know some folks here, get the best of the folks involved at early time and build a augmented team here. So that's obviously one, like operational efficiency. The other one is really the velocity of a company as a whole, because when you sleep in the US, there's someone waking up in India and taking the charge from you. So as a company, you actually double the speed at which you would work, as opposed to how you would be working if you were only in the US. And it's not about the man hours, it's about the time that takes to complete those man hours, which is humongously different if you have people working across the time zone. So yeah, I just find it fascinating, and I find it like, why would someone not use a good global presence specifically in a startup? Because like we are running double the speed at other people and half the cost. And that's always an edge in a startup. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then you're able to use some of those savings, right, to then reinvest in sales and marketing. And now you've got this kind of flywheel that helps you to be able to do things, use that as kind of a competitive advantage for you to accelerate into the market and execute some of those strategic plans.
Yeah, and we have like 5 data scientists in India. We have we have like a team of 16 engineers and data scientists in India. There is no way I would have built a team of 16 here. And it is a pretty complex product that we're building, and we're solving some very foundational problems. It requires a lot of experimentation. So it's really like a combination of research and implementation that we're doing in parallel. So it was very important for us to scale this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see the same thing from an operational perspective, right? Obviously, Tesoro, the talent is based in LATAM, but similar things, right? Where the fact that it can be a more economical option for a startup, you get some of that same ability to scale. Where we see a little bit of differences working specifically on those data science. And then I'm going back to what you mentioned about having a 24-hour development cycle works really well for you because look, you know where the best talent is. You are from there. You can speak in your native language, things of that nature that allow you to have this competitive advantage for yourself as you develop, and similarly, it's all right, well, we've got folks that work on the same time zone, North, Central, South America, right? So then there's also some benefits from being able to work real time on data science and machine learning projects. But I think that those are very important things for folks to think about as they're trying to scale on a budget. Right?
True. Yeah. And like, I'm not saying that it's not a challenge. Like obviously considering remote, multiple time zones, it is challenging, like 100%. There are times when we are tired because there is not even a single day where we don't have night calls right now. But why wouldn't you do this in a startup and trouble yourself more than forward? Like what better time than to exhaust?
Yeah, well, and I think it works really well for, just given your background, like you kind of started out understanding kind of the technology space, but then you have ties back to India for situations where look, when you have the call, there's not that. I'm making assumptions here at this point, so definitely correct me if I'm wrong. But there's not the language barrier,
Yeah.
right? Where let's say if I had a team in Russia, like we're gonna have to figure this out in English. But very interesting. Okay, so you and your co-founder teamed up, and I presume that you all built the first version of the product together.
Yeah, we did actually. It was both of us, and there were two more people, one data scientist and one engineer, and like four people initially to start with. And that's kind of how we built our V1, deployed it at a customer. I still remember the first kind of like security clearance with a customer that we had. We had a presentation where it shows our org chart, and there were literally four people in the org chart.
Okay.
So,
one interesting strategy I've heard is when you're early on, you just get a ton of advisors and you put them all into, it's actually one of our former guests, he said, put them all into your presentation so it makes your team look bigger, even though you got like a team of four.
Yeah, well, we didn't know that much, that many strategies. Considering myself as a first-time founder, I think now probably I'll invent that. But so we had great advisors just in the Bay Area supporting us, and we used them to talk about special from a technical validation standpoint whenever needed. But we never augmented our team with them. It was just the four of us. We built the first version, deployed early 2019. And then from there, really worked together with those early customers for like the whole 1 year, and released our platform only this year in March. But while we're here surviving and also growing, because digital communications have really flooded and exceeded. So our core hypothesis was really that there will be a time in space and time in the future when digital communications will become imperative for any business. But we were expecting something like 2022, 2023, like that's how things are going to evolve. And then overnight, you see that jump. So we had to also scale pretty rapidly with our existing customers. We saw almost like 10x growth over a period of like 2 weeks period. And then from there, like we've really exponentially signed customers over the next like 6 to 8 months. So it's been fantastic. I can't complain.
Yeah, and you mentioned the first customer that you acquired, the security clearance you needed. But how do you actually go from, all right, we have this product, to now we're starting to scale up and acquire new customers? I mean, did you take look, we're going to cold call folks? Were they introductions through Techstars? Did you have some marketing program that you laid out?
No, actually, we are really bad at marketing. We have not done it. Like, candidly, that's been true. So I have been super shameless in reaching out to people and using reference and Techstars and anyone else that I can find. So I have been literally on LinkedIn pinging CEOs and VP products and asking them that, hey, I want to get on a call with you and talk about this. And that was kind of how we got our early customers. And then we started doing cold emails a lot. Because it was a new technology. So we wrote some interesting cold emails talking about exactly what we provide from a value prop standpoint. And we got pretty good reply rates on our cold emails, almost like 8%, which is crazy. So, and that's kind of how we built our initial pipeline of customers. And then from there, we became better on this entire outreach of customers using multiple channels. We do a little bit of content today. We still have a lot to do. And that's kind of the objective for us from a next stage perspective, to invest into content, share what our learnings have been over the last 2 years with more developers and businesses, so that they can actually optimize their efforts and solve problems not just on what we are doing, but also the surrounding ecosystem. So just things like that. And so we're now starting to do that. But yeah, that's kind of how we acquired early customers.
Okay. And my next question is going to be along those lines. I mean, it sounds like you've learned a ton since getting started, right? And if you could go back to day one, knowing everything you know now, carrying with you all of the learning lessons that you have accumulated, and you could be an advisor to yourself at day one, what are the two most important things that you would recommend to help get you back to where you are today? Faster.
Content. We That's the fastest thing that I can get,
Okay.
because like without content, it's very difficult to communicate what you're thinking and why you're building. And being able to get on a call with everyone and then convince them is just like, it can multifold the efforts if you're writing your thoughts openly and sharing that information with people, even if it's premature, even if it is not. Like, I was very scared about like putting myself out there in the beginning saying, what if we're not thinking about this the right way? But honestly, like, it doesn't matter. And only thing that matters is that you are thinking something different from other people. So like, I would totally put myself out there on day one, start talking about it, about our hypothesis, about what we want to validate and how we want to contribute, even if it is just our thoughts and hypotheses and experiments. So I think that's like something that I would go and fix by myself.
Okay. Okay.
Minus 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very helpful. And I think it's especially helpful from the perspective that as a startup, as a founder, you're kind of hesitant to put anything out there that you think might damage. What is someone going to say? What if someone comes back and says
Yeah.
I'm wrong, right? I don't want that to damage potential sales or reputation in the market.
Totally. I mean, and that's the scare that I think everyone has. So I'm not saying to kind of like put everything out there, but yeah, I think just sharing in a very humble fashion and talking about that, we really believe that this is a way that this can change the market. These are some of the problems in the ecosystem. At least start talking about the problems that we are seeing, so that way people will get more aware about, oh, I actually read that article by this person talking about this
Mm.
exact same problem. Let me reach out to them and ask if they're doing something to solve it.
Okay. Yeah, super helpful. Anything else before we take off? I want to be mindful of time.
No, well, we're just embarking on our next journey and getting a bunch of more rock stars in the team. We're just looking for our next kind of growth team here: sales, marketing, AI, data scientists, software engineers. So that's all I want to say.
Awesome. Awesome. And
Yeah.
where can we find you? Where can we find you, and where can we find the company?
Yes. So we're there on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all across. Symbl.ai. That's our handle. You can reach out to me, Surbhi Rathore. That's my name, and you'll find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. So yeah, or just email me at surbhi@symbl.ai.
Awesome. All right, Surbhi. Well, very impressive what you've built so far, and we wish you the best. I know you've got a million more things to do. Today is Monday, so Monday is always crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
But
it is indeed.
thanks for joining us, and we hope to get you back soon here for an update.
Absolutely. Yeah, lovely talking to you. Bye bye.